Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sabansford, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, and entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have a bit of a continuation to one of the shows that we produced yesterday. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. So last night, it was actually the last show that we published on the channel, and we were reacting to the back and forth, or rather what JJ Redick did in the post-game press conference after the Lakers dropped the game to the Memphis Grizzlies. He was there, and essentially what was happening was he was taking a bunch of questions from reporters, and then one reporter by the name of Trevor Lane decided to ask him a question at the very end, and as a matter of fact, it was the last question of the press conference. And the moment the reporter asked JJ Redick the question, he just basically gave him like a one sentence, and then he just stormed off the stage. And that has been making headlines all throughout the night last night. So what happened? As we were just relaxing, after we had closed work yesterday, I was going through the internet and I came across a video from LakerNation.com, YouTube page rather, where Trevor Lane actually took us behind the scenes to really break down the spat, or rather JJ Redick walking off during his question. But before we even get into what he had to say, I want to quickly play what JJ had to say, because his explanation, I think, gives us a lot of background information as to what was really going on. So I want to quickly play what JJ said to him yesterday in his question, and then I want to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to this here quickly.
It seemed like guys were, like, you mentioned Gabe, like, they were just looking for any sign of, like, a level of heat. D'Lo, a couple after misses, like, hands over his head, like, you've been in this situation before. What's it like when you just cannot catch that? Like, big part of shooting is obviously making shots, but handling misses and stuff like that too. What are you seeing with your guys right now as they're going through a little bit of a cold spell?
I can't speak to them. I can't put myself in their brains. I don't think there's ever been a basketball player that stepped on the floor and said, "Man, I really hope I miss all my shots tonight," or "I hope I struggle shooting." It's tough. It's tough to go through it. It's tough to have a bad shooting night, and then that can, when it starts compounding, that can really start to weigh on you. I had some mental things that I would try to get myself out of it, but again, just speaking to me, there's times when you're in that and it's like, man, I'm never gonna make another shot again. That those thoughts come into your brain. You have to have the sort of the mental toughness to just keep shooting and have the belief. I was, I've told a number of players that I played with when I got older, I was like, I 8 for 12. It's going to regress towards the positive at some point. I'm going to have an 8 for 12 night, and generally I did.
JJ, you're talking a lot about 2 out of the 3, 2 or 3 guys, getting them to put in the effort. You talked a lot about wanting to play hard and LeBron being the guy that played hard in tonight's game. How do you address that with the team? What's your philosophy for approaching that?
I just did.
So you heard the original exchange. Now, when I clicked on his show, I was actually eager for him to explain what really took place. And I think that what he said gave a very good insight as to what was going through JJ Redick's mind when he decided to just walk off. And then he also revealed what JJ said as JJ was actually walking off or leaving the table to go back to maybe the locker room or wherever. And he gave more insight. So JJ actually said more that the cameras didn't pick up. So what we want to do is we want to play what Trevor Lane had to say, and so you can basically take us behind the scenes, and then we're going to come back and react to his comments. Take a listen to that there.
Okay, so let's talk about that JJ Redick mic drop moment, because yes, again, that was me. That was my question. I was in Memphis covering the game in person. And yeah, that was my question that JJ kind of snapped back at, had his mic drop moment and all of that went viral. And so let's talk. Let me give you my side of that story. So I got handed the mic. It was announced that this was going to be the last question. And what I wanted to find out from JJ was simply, how does he address a lack of effort with the team? What's his philosophy, right? Because throughout the interview process, he had been talking about the lack of effort. He'd been talking about how he didn't like that LeBron at nearly 40 played harder than anybody else, and rightfully so. He was upset about that. And it popped up a few times throughout the interview. And so I caught on to that and thought, I want to find out how does he deal with it? Because you can practice, like if you're a bad 3-point shooting team, you can practice more threes. If you're a bad rebounding team, you can practice rebounding, right? Sometimes an absence of effort can be a more difficult thing for a coach to address. So what I was trying to find out was, what does he do to fix a lack of effort? What's his philosophy there? That's what I wanted to know, to get some insight into how JJ is as a coach. Now, I will say this. I did a horrible job of actually asking the question. I was not succinct. I did not get to the point. I rambled way too much, and I'll tell you what happened. So I get the mic. I start to ask my question, and I put it up as the thumbnail from the interview. JJ has a death stare. And JJ looked at me as I'm starting to ask this question, and it dawns on me mid-question, oh no, I've made a mistake. Like this, I am not going to get the answer right now. Like he was done talking in that moment. You could tell, you could feel it. And at that point, I had already committed. The nosedive, I was full into it, and there was no chance that I was going to pull up out of this thing. So even though it dawned on me mid-question, like, oh, this is not going to go well, at that point I was committed. So I continued to fumble and stumble my way through the question. And once again, I did a terrible job asking the question. So then JJ answers the way that he does, right? He says, I just did, drops the mic. I've seen some of the response online has been, well, it was a terrible question. It was a terrible question. He'd been talking about that the whole time. No, not what I was trying to find out. I've been talking about a lack of effort. I wanted to find out how he addresses a lack of effort with the team. And that's why JJ responded the way he did. He was not saying, I just did, like I was just talking about that. I've already answered that question. That's not what he was saying. He was saying, I just did, like I just handled that with the team. Because after he put down the mic and he walked off, he turned back and said, it's the first thing I said to them.
So you heard what he had to say. I'm very happy that I came across that video yesterday because now I have a better understanding of what took place. So apparently JJ Redick said more. Trevor Lane actually gave his reasoning as to why he thinks JJ Redick could have possibly been irritated with his question. But here's my overall thought about this. Regardless of whether or not JJ Redick was upset or not, or he was fuming at the fact that the Lakers lost that game, it still didn't look good for him to just storm off and walk out of the room like that. Apparently, there's even a video that's going around, circulating around the internet of where I believe D'Lo tried to hit his 3-point shot in that game. I think he missed a 3. The camera panned to JJ Redick, and you could see JJ Redick like slamming his chair, slamming it and jumping up and down like in anger at the play that basically developed, and it obviously didn't work out in the favor of the Lakers. And as I'm seeing this, I'm saying to myself, JJ Redick needs to do a better job corralling his emotions. He needs to do a better job. Why? Because we're only 8 games into the season. We're only 8 games in. That's number one. Number two, your team is going to take on the personality of the coach. And if you're a guy that's getting flustered and blowing your top and getting angry and jumping up and down, your team is going to mimic that. I remember one of the issues that Shaquille O'Neal, when he was with the Magic, one of the issues he had with Stan Van Gundy, he used to call him the master of panic. If anybody ever watched Stan Van Gundy coach a team, you will know that Stan Van Gundy wore his emotions on his sleeve. And whenever his team wouldn't do well, you could definitely see it from the coach. And in some cases, that may demoralize the players. Whereas if you look at more stoic coaches like a Phil Jackson, you would not be able to tell if the Lakers are up by 20 or down by 20 just looking at Phil Jackson's countenance. And that's something that Tyronn Lue developed. So when you can remain emotionally stable, it actually helps your team. If you look at some of the best coaches in the NBA, yeah, there are times when they kind of lose their cool. Greg Popovich, you've seen that happen from time to time. You've also seen it happen with Eric Spoelstra from time to time. Ty Lue, not as much. But usually those coaches, when they're getting upset, they usually get upset with the refs once or twice, but like on occasion. But if they want to chew out their players, you've seen them do it. Like there's footage of Greg Popovich going off on Kawhi Leonard. But generally, these coaches are able to control their emotions. That's number 2. And number 3, we have to look at this scenario in the context that JJ Redick is in. It's not like I said JJ Redick is coaching the Charlotte Hornets or the Brooklyn Nets. He is the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, where any little thing the media is looking for it as an opportunity to run with it. Any little thing, and you don't want to give him a reason to do it because it's just going to turn into a snowball. Because what happens in the next interview if they lose, and then one coach said, one reporter says, "Oh, JJ, we've noticed something that whenever your team doesn't do well, or whenever a player doesn't do something good on the court, you start acting out and lashing out. Is this job becoming too much pressure for you?" They can ask you that. How do you think JJ Redick is going to respond to a quip like that? Of course he's going to be upset. So JJ is only 8 games into this thing. Only 8 games in. And if you're already getting flustered so early, it's not a good look. And I think that that's something that he needs to work on. Now, I'm just giving my opinion, but I think it's something he needs to work on. Whenever you have your coach or your best player and you see they're having emotional breakdowns on the floor, it doesn't help the team, especially in moments where you need calm. These are just my thoughts. Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We'll catch you guys on the next show. Peace.